Creamer Media's Engineering News and Mining Weekly is interviewing Graham Roebuck, the CEO of Siyavuya Power Projects, a company that is helping to power South Africa. There's been some great success around Siyavuya, particularly with the Impofu transmission line project in the Eastern Cape. But tell us how you guys got going.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting story. In 1994, myself and a fellow founder of the company before it became Siyavuya, we were building a power line from Wobble's hydro station to Willowvale, and we finished like 3 months ahead of time. And at the time, they were busy with electrification, so Eskom went and awarded the company we were working for a contract to electrify Willowvale. So December came and it was time to go home, and anyway we went home, and the boss wasn't too happy, so he said, no, you must go back. And why did you come back in the first place? So anyway, it was our official leave, so we ended up arriving back at work the next morning, 6 o'clock, to go back, and he walked out his offices and said no, he decided that no one tells him how to run his business, so we all got fired. So, well, it was the whole crew, we all got fired, so, you know, that was like a Saturday morning, and I think at the time I was 22 years old. So the best thing to do is to shoot down to the local pub and celebrate your new success of being fired. So we went to the pub, and we were sitting there having a cold one, and there was an old man sitting there, and he was also a little bit down. And he said, "Now, what do you do?" I said, "No, we've been building power lines, you know, the wooden infrastructure." And he said, "Oh, no, he's a clerk of works, and Eskom's been doing the same just outside Queenstown, where we were based, and they had left for December break. But with the, you know, sort of transition or the governments coming in, they want to electrify these villages before Christmas and New Year. So right there in the bar, we sort of did a deal where we sold our services per hour to go and fix up all the faults and make sure it can be energized, and then energize it so that the community will have power before Christmas and New Year. So we sort of struck a deal on the back of a matchbox, and he spoke to his consulting engineer. We did a deal, and there was a provision that if we did this, next year they would give us 4 transformer areas to build. So we went and borrowed a bakkie. The recent staff that was all fired, we went and fetched them, and we went and electrified these villages and put them on for Christmas and New Year. And everyone was happy, they were up, and then they actually, Eskom kept to their word and gave us 4 transformer areas to do the next year. So we then, the fellow founder, Wayne Nash, his father had a 3-ton canter, and we welded a frame on, and we eventually used that, and we started planting poles, and we built the transformer areas, and that's how the business originally started. So interesting enough, from 94, the electrification drive was massive, and when we started really, and we started sort of by that sort of nature, which is a freakish way of starting a business, at 22 years old. So there were only like 5 contractors around in the Eastern Cape, and the electrification drive started. That was driven by Jan Oberholzer. And at the time they said, well, no one can energize or electrify all these homelands. It's like an impossible task. It would have been the biggest electrification project worldwide. And so we got stuck in. Eventually we were building some of the biggest areas, transformer areas. I think the biggest one did was 12,000 houses, single project, which we did everything from the design, from the substation, the MV network, the LV network, and the whole lot. So we electrified thousands of people, and so we didn't even participate much in the transmission network at that stage. But by the time we started entering into the sub-transmission field, when we went to a Eskom sort of forum in the Eastern Cape, there were like 1,200 contractors sitting there. And the entire build for electrification, the amount of contractors, we exceeded the amount of work that was available. And they said that was impossible to build. So from the onset, I think no one believed that in the work ethic and the culture in the country that if the opportunity is there, the South African companies will get it done. So, which sort of brings us back to where we are today, and today we're building sub-transmission lines. We still do the wooden pole lines. They've raised their head again in like wind farms, in the collector circuits. There's cabling, there's overhead, there's the 132 kV lines, and then there's the transmission lines. So I fully believe that from where we started to where we're going now, the same success will be achieved through the electrification of the transmission lines. And so I think there's a message of good hope there, that where people think there's no capacity, it can't be done. I honestly believe it can be done. And I think Siyavuya will be at the forefront of that to prove to everyone that it can be done.
How many projects are you involved with at the moment?
Currently, I think we're doing 9 projects. While we did the Impofu projects, and I know we're going to concentrate on the Impofu project, at the same time we also built a project for Skytech on Grootfontein from Kappa. We did Section C on the Medupi-Witkorp 400 kV line, and we built the 400 kV line from Neptune to Pembroke. So although the Impofu project is a good achievement within the context of the other projects, it's a bigger achievement in the sense that if we count the circuit kilometers that were built, just by Siyavuya, it was 350 kilometers last year. And I think many news reports say that, we're battling to get kilometers built. But if we look at all the industries that there are, those kilometers are being built.
Just give us some idea of your base. Where do you work from, and how do you fabricate all this stuff? Where?
Well, yeah, interesting story again. The fabrication of steel was always a bit of a concern and a problem, and mainly because of the market fluctuating. Sort of feast and famine that's been in the market. But we actually acquired we helped start a business in East London, because our main base is in East London, to fabricate towers. That business struggled, so we ended up buying the business and expanding the business. So like the Impofu project, there were 500 towers there, and we manufactured. So we designed all the towers for the double circuit twin turn. There were previously issues with deflection and some towers failing. So we designed all the towers for Impofu. We had them type tested at Rocheville. Each and every tower was type tested, and then we manufactured all the towers ourselves in-house for the project.
And swinging to Impofu, tell us about that. It's a very interesting private sector initiative, a self-build. And you went the extra mile there, and it's good enough to finish on schedule, but you beat the schedule.
We did, but it was tough. I think at maximum we had 900 employees working, of which, because the stringing was the critical part, I think at the end we had 6 stringing teams and about 500 climbers. So it was very tough to finish. But I think the nature of the work is you're very motivated to finish, because Siyavuya is still owner, managed and run business. So with the penalties, DLDs, performance bonds that you need to put down, it's almost life or death, because if you fail, the consequences are grave. So I think to have the mindset that, first of all, never fail, never be late, is the best approach to have on a project like that.
Just give us that picture of Impofu wind farm. Who wants it? Who put you onto this? All the implications.
Well, Impofu wind farm is an Inel and Redcap driven project. Initially, we weren't even invited to bid. The previous IPP projects, and we weren't active in the IPP space, more in the Eskom distribution, Eskom transmission space. Most of the projects were next to power lines or close to substations. So there could be a turn-in, turn-out. So the need for very strong transmission companies was never needed. So the initial inquiry went out to the traditional sort of CBOP and EBOP contractors who had no idea how to construct this line. So I think through one of those EBOP contractors, we got given the opportunity to quote, and I think they soon saw that this is a massive scope with high risk. So they stepped away, and we engaged directly with EGP to design. We designed the route, and we designed the towers, and basically did the construction from the onset.
What would you say is the biggest challenge with all this? Where did you really get strained?
Well, there were many challenges. I think typically in all projects, landowners are the biggest issues, and this had a very diverse amount of landowners. Along the route, I think there were like 60 different landowners, and a lot of the landowners were also municipalities, at the MTOs, the Department of Forestry, many small farms, many communities. So it was quite diverse. But the landowner was driven and managed by EGP, and I must say they did an awesome job on managing the landowners and the stakeholders. So we actually didn't battle there, and I think that's where we mainly battle. There were significant community issues, but I think it's quite standard already in the industry to find ways to empower the community and to work around that. I think is the key, although it doesn't always work. I think we did our best to find scope and include everyone and to hire, but there were still substantial challenges. But all construction projects that go through communities have that. So I don't think it's not one of the best, but it's also not one of the worst, but close to one of the worst, I would say.
Just fling back to it. Where does it start? Where does it finish? What are we looking at?
Yeah, so it actually starts sort of in between Port Elizabeth and Uitenhage at Algoa. And the first 7 kilometers, there was two single circuit lattice towers that were built in the servitude to Chatty substation. So the first thing that we needed to do was there was no space to build this power line. So the first sort of engineering feat that we had to get over was how do we break down these two lattice lines, which is two single conductor 132 kV lines, and replace it with, so the municipality got a bit of an upgrade out of the project, so we replaced it with two twin conductor single circuits, and we had to fit a double circuit twin turn line in the same servitude. So it took quite a bit of engineering in isolating the one line, trying to build the other lines, energizing that, then isolating the other line, dismantling that line, and then building the other circuit, and then eventually building the Impofu circuit. So that was the initial challenge there, and then from there on, there were still many challenges through the communities. We went through a very large game reserve that had the Big Five in it. So we needed to manage around all the wildlife. It ran through then many farms. It runs around the back of what they call the MTO. It's the mountain to sea. It's a forestry area. I think if we share some of the photographs, you'll see the line is basically running on the side of a mountain for about 10 kilometers, where access was almost impossible, where we had to use a lot of alternative construction methods to build it in, including putting up towers with jump poles, basically putting it up by hand because we couldn't get cranes and stuff there. From there were sand dune areas, there were waterlogged areas, there were cobblestone areas. I think when you say there's 4 seasons, in a day, Impofu was 4 seasons in a day.
We're talking about seasons now. There were also heavy rains and there was foot and mouth disease.
I think the heavy rains brought on the foot and mouth. So initially, when we were negotiating the contract, there was a drought, and we were actually trying to strategize how would we get construction water, because the Impofu Dam itself was empty. And then as we got it started, the rains came down. So it first created a lot of sort of delays because of the rain. Secondly, it changed all the soil types, because the soil types that were a typical type 2 became a type 4. So that was a massive engineering challenge, and also a financial challenge that we had to overcome. And I think it was a burden on the business, because the type of contracts that we sign don't allow for any additional money if it's a type 2 or type 4. You consider all the risks. So I think that sort of got us down a bit. The foot and mouth, that was a sort of a bad time. Once again, it's force majeure. You don't know where you will have foot and mouth. So the project was stopped for 3 months. So I think it was a challenge to how do you sort of keep your staff? How do you pay for your staff? Because once again, you're in a FIDIC silver book, and that's a force majeure event. So you have to be able to cover it. So what we did get out of that was an extension of time for the time we weren't allowed to work. So, but it still put us under more pressure. So yeah, that was quite a challenge for us.
But overall, you beat your schedule if you look at it. And what were you supposed to do it in? And I think you did it in 16 months.
The official contract time was 16 and a half months, and we did it in 16 months. So there were a few contributing factors to that. We used the limited notice to proceed for our engineering. And in our engineering, we also had great support from EJP, where we started to procure some of the long lead time items and some of the critical items. So when the construction started, we were actually ready to put the excavator in the ground and have the material to put in the ground. So I think there was a lot of good lessons learned there, how a person can use LNTP or limited notice to proceed to your best advantage to get the best design for the people that specialize in that type of work, to walk the line, to find the best positions, to use the best towers, to position them in the places that would require the least amount of struggle and time to do it in a difficult terrain.
So good partnerships are always good, and you speak of EJP, which is Enel Green Power, but Oscar, you worked with Eskom Distribution and the Eastern Cape Province and all the associated construction companies associated with the Impofu Wind Farms cluster, which was what this was all about.
Yes, and I must say, the Eastern Cape Southern Laws or Southern region really came to the party. To be able to construct such a long line with so many complexities and to get it handed over in that time. So normally they say a job's not done until the paperwork's done. And the amazing part is we got the job done and the paperwork done all under the 16 months. And we could never have done that without the awesome cooperation from the Eskom their inspectors were there, they were supportive, all our hold points were covered, all the quality was done. So yes, I mean, it is a relationship. And if you have that good relationship and a good work ethic from the Eskom side, it makes it just so much easier to achieve what you need to achieve.
But also ownership is so important in this private ownership. Who owns your business?
Well, we employee owned. We 12 shareholders in total, and 11 of the 12 still work within the business. I'm personally still a shareholder, and I'm not going to mention all the names, but all the shareholders are still active in the business. We drive the business. It has conformed into the Companies Act, where we have to apply corporate rules because of the sort of turnover and the amount of staff that we have. So, but the buy-in from everyone is still there. The energy is there, and I think because of the exciting times ahead. So,
how do you fund all this?
How do we fund it? Well, I think we have a very strategic partner in funding. The IDC has been backing us a lot to develop the business. So we've had wonderful support from the IDC. They've allowed us to increase our capacity at our steel manufacturing plant at Carboferrum, at our galvanizing plant, More Hot, to buy additional plant and equipment with Siyavuya Logistics. So we've fairly been blessed by that, and we can really see how the process of getting funding even assists the business, because the due diligence process that the IDC subjects you to is astronomical, and you really have to go and dig deep into how does your business work, what value do you add, how do you intend to add value in the future, because really that's what they're funding. They're funding the growth. They're not funding you to have a good time. So that has been our main funder, and obviously we plough most of the money back that we have in the business to sustain the growth curve.
And we're looking at Siyavuya Holdings on your shirt, but we see what you've mentioned, More Hot, galvanizers, and everywhere on your shirt we see different things. Tell us about them.
Well, I think we'd call it vertically integrated business. When you need a certain part on site and you have a workforce of 1,500 people, you need to get that part on site when you need it and how you need it. And to be constrained from a supply chain point of view starts to cost the business money. So we, in essence, started that to be more efficient. So when you can control your own procurement, your own supply chain, and you know where the priorities are, you can shift the factory's focus to what the client's focus is, or what the broader view of the business. So as Siyavuya Holdings, our main role is to have a helicopter view of all the subsidiaries, and how can the subsidiaries assist each other to achieve what most people believe is unachievable. But through the sort of vertical integration, you're able to achieve that.
Which projects are you involved with now?
At the moment, we are doing 2 projects for Transnet. So there's on the Sishen Saldanha, there's a Juno traction substation plus a power line. There's a Aris traction substation plus a power line. Then we are building the Aris Kronos section A, 400 kV line. It's 100 kilometers. We are doing the Hydra Kronos 400 kV line. It's 100 kilometers. We're busy with the Arnott Kendall turn in, turn out. That's 8 kilometers of 400 kV line. We are doing the Mahobe Bes project for Skytech. And I think there's a number of, and we're also doing the Paddy Pembroke 50 kilometer line for Wind Garden for NOAA. So, and then lastly, and not least, we're doing the electrical infrastructure for Bosch for G7. which includes the 132 kV power line, the 33 kV wooden pole collectors, and the cabling to the wind turbines.
But Engineering News and Mining Weekly understands that this particular Impu project is South Africa's longest privately permitted power line developed for renewables energy project to date.
It is. And in fact, it's the biggest one EJP has built worldwide. Their second biggest has been 90 some odd kilometers in Brazil, and this project was their biggest project, and they're a worldwide company and one of the biggest IPPs in the world. So it's the biggest one for them too.
And you doubled up on the length, but just give us the length and the 132 kilovolt. Give us some insight into that.
It's a 132 kV line. It's a double circuit, and the main line was 115 kilometers, and then the municipal lines that were to break down was 14 kilometers, and we had to build another 14 kilometers of new lines to replace that. So all in all, if we look at it from a double circuit point of view, it's 120 kilometers. If we consider the double circuit to be two single circuits, it's 240 kilometers of power line.
And finally, Graham, where to next for Siyavuya?
Where to next? Well, there's two things on the cards. One is the ITP. So I think it's still in the infantry stages. You know, initially companies like us weren't really on the radar, I can put it like that, for the ITP. But I think it's vitally important that someone has to build the infrastructure. And there was a meeting, I think you guys covered it at the IDC, where the minister said that at the second phase, you know, the EPCs will be called in to form part of this ITP. So I think that is one of the major. But besides that, Eskom is rolling out many projects at the moment. There are many projects in the market. The 765s are coming. I think that's going to be our next big challenge. The Perseus Zeus, the tender came out. The tenders have been submitted. And I think that's going to be the next big challenge. That's 460 kilometers of 765 line, and it will be hex turn conductor. So it's going to be a massive, massive project.
That was Creamer Media's Engineering News and Mining Weekly, speaking to Graham Roebuck, the CEO of Siyavuya Power Projects.